And today I'm going to use the example, I'm talk about worship, and I'm going to use their pictures from this camp to illustrate worship. Number one is singing to the Lord. If you look up, I think it's coming up. It's just singing to the Lord. In Psalms 104, it says, sing to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord all my life. And number two, another way to worship is pouring out your heart. These kids in Kenya don't have anything. They don't have electricity. They live in one little tiny room. They don't have running water. And yet, when I said pour out your heart to the Lord, they had their little hands out and just pouring out their heart. In the Bible, it says, bow down and worship the Lord. And another way to worship is being just touched by his presence. Caitlin Rowland came and she was singing to all the people John Mark's song on how he loves me. And this little girl was so touched by how he loves me. She just got into the presence of the Lord. So that's another way to worship. Another way to worship is just getting down on your knees and bowing down and just praying for your families. And when I tell them in Kenya, we're going to pray for their families, immediately the children turn around and put their hands in the seat and start warring for their families. Another way to worship is just hanging out with Jesus. And this little boy is just hanging out with Jesus. And I'm going to talk about hanging out with Jesus today. Hanging out with Jesus, Bob Jones said, that was interesting what Leonard said about Bob Jones, but Bob Jones said he talked about little children and he'd put his hand on their stomachs and he'd say, go up, go up, go up to heaven, hang out with Jesus. There you go, there you go. And he did that all the time. Well, that's what I do with my inner city kids. And one day I had one of my group of inner city kids in the Alanya room, and I said, go up and hang out with Jesus, and they put their little hands out. And little Craig, 5 years old, he said, I see buzzards, and I see blood, and I see buzzards eating things. And I said, Craig, would you like to go outside with me for a second? And he went outside with me, and I said, do you want Jesus in your heart? He said, yes. And so I led him to the Lord and went back in. I said, put your hands out again and hang out with Jesus. And he hung out with Jesus. He said, oh, I see angels. I see heaven. I see God. And so when little kids hang out, they just hang out. They just know exactly what that means. Well, when I go up here to worship, I go hang out with Jesus. I just go up to the heavenlies and hang out. And he shows me things before it comes to earth. Bill Johnson said, kingdom of heaven is near. And when he shows you something in heaven, that it's going to come to earth. One day I was hanging out with Jesus up here, and I saw Jesus sweep gold coins from heaven. And one hit me on the head, and I went, wow, that really hurt. Now, I've never seen a gold coin or never held one in my hand, but someone here in the audience today, they came and sit down at the cafe with me, and they said, I have something for you. And he rolled out a little gold coin. Now, I saw it in heaven before it came to earth. And he said, I want you to sell it, and I want you to go feed the homeless. And so I sold it for $1,800, and I fed the homeless with it. So he sowed. Another time I'm up here worshiping 4 years ago, I see this great big door and the lights in the door, and I know it's a TV station. But 4 years I kept seeing it. And then one day I saw Jesus open the door where I could see the rest of the lights. And 2 weeks later, 700 Club called and said they wanted to film the church for the homeless. Then they put it on the 700 Club. But I saw it in heaven before I saw it on earth. So, and the last one I was going to tell you about, one day I'm up here worshiping, and God tells me to go to China. And I see this underground church in China, and I see myself speaking in an underground church in China. But I said, Lord, I love Africa. I love the poorest of the poor. I don't want to go to China. And so I said, okay, if you want me to go to China, I'm going to walk in Zadok, which used to be the house of prayer here, and I've been in it 11 times. No one ever prayed for me. I said, I'm going to walk in here today, and if somebody comes down and prays for me, then I'll know you want me to go to China. So I walk in, I sit on the front row. The worship leader gets down from worshiping and comes over and says, what do you need prayer for? And I went, I'm going to China. She said, okay, everybody get around me and go to China. And pray for her to go to China. And I went, no, Lord. I told her I was going to China, so that doesn't count. I tell you what, if I walk into church tonight and somebody comes up to me and says, I'm going to bless you financially to go to China, I'll go. I'll get my ticket. So I walk in the church. My best friend meets me right at the door, and she said, my whole home group wants to bless you and go to China. And I went, okay, I'm getting a ticket. So I get a ticket to go to China, and I'm sitting in the hotel room waiting for an underground church to open up. Now, that's hard, because I don't know where they are. But the interpreter knew somebody in Taiwan that knew somebody in Beijing had an underground church, and she contacted him. And he met me at a restaurant and said, okay, you can come and speak at my underground church. And I went and spoke in an underground church with 100 people. And I tell you what, I was so blessed, because people in China, they don't have denominations like Baptist, Methodist, Pentecostal. They're all Pentecostal, and they're all speak in tongues, and they all believe in the gifts, and they believe in healing, and they worship. When they worship, they really, really worship. And today, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to activate what I just told you about hanging out with Jesus, and I want everyone in the room to put your hands out, and I want everyone in the room to close your eyes, and I want you, just like little children, I want you to go up to heaven. I want you to hang out with Jesus. And as soon as you get through hanging out with Jesus, I'm going to stop, and I want you to go and tell the person next to you what you saw in heaven. My little inner city kids see their relatives, and they see a lot of things. So I'm going to give you just a moment to hang out. Okay, that should be enough time you hang out with Jesus. You can take longer sometime. All right, I want you to turn to the person next to you and tell them what you saw. If you didn't see anything, just say, I didn't see anything. Kids are real honest. They'll say they didn't see anything. Turn to the person next to you and tell them what you saw. Little kids see much better than we do. So next time you go worship, come up here, and you can bow down, you can sing the song, it'll minister to your heart, or you can just hang out with Jesus, and what you see, write it down. What you see, write it down, and keep a record of it, because hang on to your visions like a dog hangs on to a bone. Never let go of it.